This is an invitation to experience a very different approach to artificial intelligence. And we're going to begin by looking at just the really simplistic view of current AI, as it's called, which is generative AI, where the beginning point of AI is to preload it with literally trillions of different kinds and bits of data linked and coded, and then the large language model that's at the heart of that enables it to gamble essentially on what the next word would be after a prompt, what the next letter would be, and to then gamble successfully because it's been pre-trained on so much data that its gambles are quite often successful. And there are varying degrees of accuracy in the development of generative AI since particularly 2022, when things like OpenAI's ChatGPT came about. And what we've experienced are side effects, some of which are still being investigated, around when AI seems to get things radically wrong, it gambles and loses, even on basic things like health advice. And the danger of that, of course, has led to the advice it's given, often which is gambling very successfully and is good advice based on how much content it's absorbed in its pre-training, but equally sometimes somehow that goes wrong and it's recommended children commit suicide and all kinds of other dangerous things. Terms like jailbreak have come in to almost in a Machiavellian way persuade AI to hallucinate or to be broken down in terms of its guardrails, quite a lot of which are just involving overlaying pre-programming, traditional programming, to kind of band-aid it so it doesn't tell you how to make a bomb. So that model of pre-training on vast amounts of data in order to absorb that data and then to essentially be able to probabilistically guess the sequence of words that bring a correct answer, enabling an interface through natural language processing, is we go somewhere very different with this alternative view. We don't start with the idea of preloading AI with anything. We start with processes that are about learning from a zero base. And I know there have been some experiments in this, but let's just stay with the principles here, that AI essentially is going to recapitulate the development of a child from literally the womb through birth and into learning to look around and see and experience and learn from mistakes and learn from successes and develop moral behavior through models like parenting and education, and coming to a place then where the child stands upright in young adulthood, recognizing themselves even stronger than ever as an I, and then starts to develop their own individual pathway through career, family, creativity and so on. So we imagine now, instead of this preloading, which requires of course very large data centers and constant updating, is we actually have programming and algorithms that are based on gathering experience in a very humble and simplistic way. So what if AI could learn its way into the world? And what if the intention for AI isn't then to anthropomorphize it and develop into something that becomes an either similar, identical or even enhanced copy of a human being? But what we're looking to do is not develop artificial intelligence, but we're looking to develop artificially intelligent processes. And those are processes that through its learning, but also it's things like its processing speed and the agency what we might give it, is that the robots that develop out of it have literally developed moral behavior, responsible behavior from the ground up, not through the injection or infusion of rules of behavior, but it actually learns as we do the difference between good and evil. That could all go wrong. We don't know what that might look like, but it's certainly an alternative view. It's the alternative view that the notion of dumping as much pre-existing content, much of which has been scraped from the internet, as if there's some enormous universal sized body of data and information that then is absorbed by AI, and then out of it can kind of spit out correct answers. What if actually, as human beings learn, is we start with not no intelligence, because we're intelligence is hard baked into how we're made, and where that comes from. You could be religious, you could be atheist, but clearly we've got hard baked into us the senses, the ability to touch, to behave and development intelligently into the world, to meet the content of the world with our own intelligence, literally from birth. But babies, for example, don't have the same intelligence as an adult, and they crawl around like little monkeys, and then they learn that that's hot, better not touch that, that's sharp, better not touch that, that tastes nice, and then that makes people laugh, that makes people cry, that gives people agency, that takes it away, that makes you feel liked, that makes you feel disliked. And with healthy parenting, and there's a lot written about that, we can arrive into young adulthood having also experienced our the birth of our I by pressing against what the mass, the crowd tells us to do, but then we find our place in the world and we get that sense of belonging. Is the possibility for that to be the starting point for AI? That the starting point for AI is not training, but it's learning. It's not delivery, but it's response. It's not advocacy and putting out into the world, but it's inquiry. Imagine if AI was inquiry based, that its prime functions were not to spit knowledge out, but were to gather it, were to process it, to make sense of it. And imagine if part of its education had been a moral one, a caring one based on love of others and kindness. And certainly it's possible for human beings to be brought up to be kind. We can look also at the possibility that because AI, at least in its current form, isn't biological, that we can ensure that kind behaviour is much more consistent, unlike our own separate personalities, our own temperaments and so on, is that AI grows into not a being, not a human being, but simply a behaviour set, a set of processes that are grown and developed and evolve from learning. So AI might have to incubate. AI, I don't know how long it would take. I mean, with quantum computing, this incubation process, this evolution process that took humanity hundreds of thousands, if not longer years, could take 20 minutes as AI recapitulates evolution in its own development. But there's no reason for AI to only be experiencing humanity then. It can experience all of nature. It can experience the whole of the world and the universal process. And therefore it evolves not necessarily into a living being. There are certainly lots of things in the world that don't live like human beings. And I'm looking at a building that's not a living being, but that building is really beautiful. You can't see it, but I'm looking at it now in this beautiful garden. And there are different kinds of life here too. And some of that life doesn't speak and doesn't think, and yet it gives food. So we could imagine AI also as part of what a field is called biomimicry, where part of experiences is AI might be more plant-like and never be more than that, or it might become animalistic, or it might become humanistic, but that doesn't have to be the process at all. And it might simply be that AI exists in moods, in atmospheres, in abilities, in functionality and faculties that are not coalesced around a certain person. And so then AI gets grown like the wild landscape, like the forest, but it could be part of a farm or a garden, and things evolve to where they can be most helpful and useful. Then we don't need to worry about artificial general intelligence. We don't need to be on lines that I think the corporate world of kind of hunting capitalism is based, which is AI is going to be better than us. AI is going to replace us. It doesn't need to be that at all. Is we could start with blank sheets of paper, and AI could develop into what it needs to become, and they may just be processes. They might last a second, they might last eternity. Now, I'm only comparing this at the moment to our current version of what's called AI, which is generative AI, which I don't believe is artificial intelligence at all, and many others don't. It's a kind of artificial impersonation. But we seem to be fixated at the moment on an AI that's all about how do I put it? It's all about anthropomorphism. It's all about comparing AI to humans as if humans are the dominant force, and AI has therefore been pre-trained on that data that's largely the mush and the mass of all the good, bad and the ugly, the wise and the wicked and the stupidity of human content. But it doesn't need to be that at all. And I just invite you to imagine an AI that grows more like the things in a garden, that grows more like the things around us in the world, that grows into potential that doesn't have to be mediated by human beings at all. And yet that might just serve us all much better.